In the context of the 0.1% growth, if we can call it that South Africa attained in the first quarter of 2025, I wanted to discuss a little bit the state of South Africa's municipalities and why these municipalities, especially when they are dysfunctional, serve as a brake on growth. We detailed this in a macro review report that we released from the CRA earlier this year. I will link to that report in the description below. But here I just wanted to link the findings from that report to the economic data and also to the latest report from the Auditor-General of South Africa, Tsakani Maluleke. Now, in the latest report from the Auditor-General finds that for the 2023-24 financial year, only 41 of South Africa's 257 municipalities received a clean audit. The previous year, the figure was 34. So yes, an improvement, but I don't think it's anything to write home about. In the report, the Auditor-General concluded, quote, that little has changed and that local government continues to be in a dire state, end quote. If you look at our metros especially, I think the situation becomes all the more stark, except for one metro, which is Cape Town. Cape Town received its clean audit in this latest report. That's the third year in a row that Cape Town has received a clean audit from the Auditor-General. If you look at South Africa's 8 metros overall, they account for 57% of the total national expenditure on local government, and they provide services to 46% of the country's households. They are vital for economic growth and for the country's investment case. Now, when you look at the 3 metros in Gauteng, Johannesburg, Tshwane, and Ekurhuleni, it is especially important that they function because this province alone contributes a third of South Africa's entire GDP. However, if you look at what the Auditor-General found regarding all the metros except for Cape Town, the overall audit outcomes of the metros had, quote, continued to regress since 2020-21. Johannesburg, eThekwini, and Ekurhuleni received unqualified audits with findings. Buffalo City, Tshwane, Mangaung, and Nelson Mandela Bay all received qualified audit opinions with findings. In the case of Mangaung and the capital city, Tshwane, the financial situation is so dire that there is doubt whether they can continue as going concerns. If I can drill down a little bit more, especially into Mangaung in the Free State, here what the Auditor-General found, I think, paints a stark picture of the majority of South Africa's metros, except for Cape Town. Mangaung spent a whopping 81% of revenue it received from customers, or that should say rate-paying citizens, on employee-related costs amounting to 1.96 billion rand, leaving little to be spent on service delivery. Now, that's all according to the Auditor-General. And in the same period that the Auditor-General has focused on in their latest report, they find that the Mangaung Metro incurred 1.34 billion rand in unauthorized spending and 122 million rand in fruitless and wasteful expenditure. All in all, I think this paints a stark picture of Mangaung, but it's even more indicative of the lack of political will from a national level to get involved effectively and resolve provincial and municipal issues. So why I highlight this is that Mangaung was placed under national government intervention in 2019 with a financial recovery plan in place for more than a year, yet its finances have shown no improvement. When I go back to the macro review report that I mentioned at the beginning of this discussion, we've often had representatives of the Government of National Unity, including President Ramaphosa and the Public Works Minister, Dean McPherson of the Democratic Alliance, talking about the fact that South Africa needs to get at least 3% growth. They talk about turning South Africa into a construction site, one massive construction site. All laudable goals, no doubt. But if your local government doesn't function, if services aren't delivered as they should be to rate-paying citizens, businesses falter, economic growth doesn't happen, and of course, unemployment continues to increase over time. To achieve those growth and infrastructure investment goals that the minister and that the president talk about often, large amount of capital formation and foreign direct investment are required in South Africa. In turn, to get those, you need predictable and relatively easy to navigate business environment, as well as, of course, a safe environment. So you need less crime. This is only possible if municipalities can perform their core functions. If we go back to his 2025 State of the Nation address, President Ramaphosa said, quote, "Refuse is not collected and sewage runs in the streets. In part, this has happened because many municipalities lack the technical skills and resources required to meet our people's needs. Many municipalities have not reinvested the revenue they earn or collect from these services into the upkeep of infrastructure," end quote. However, despite the collapse of municipal services and the fact that the 2026 or possibly early 2027 local government elections are around the corner, it is unlikely that the government will correct course soon. Cadre deployment and public procurement regulations, often leading to a skills exodus and corruption in municipalities, remain core policies of the African National Congress. As to the risks for citizens and businesses, failing municipal services have a domino effect on businesses and communities. While paying their rates and other day-to-day expenses, local businesses and citizens are burdened with further costs as they attempt to mitigate service delivery failures. Those who cannot bear the extra costs are forced to relocate or to close. While South Africa's major metros can benefit from businesses and citizens moving in from failing smaller towns, the economic impact on more rural regions is decidedly negative. We add into all of this the costs, the debt that municipalities owe to Eskom and other entities. As of 2025, municipal debt owed to Eskom is estimated to breach the 100 billion rand mark. If you look at the period from April to August of 2024, the debt owed by municipalities to Eskom grew by 11 billion rand. On the waterfront, between 2019 and 2024, municipal debt owed to water boards increased by 151%, and at present totals 22.4 billion rand. The Vaal Central Water and Magalies water boards faced bankruptcy by 2025. As highlighted by the SA Property Owners Association, ongoing water supply challenges will hobble investor confidence in the metropolitan heart of South Africa's economy, that of course being Johannesburg. With Johannesburg slated to host the G20 summit in November this year, we had President Ramaphosa engaging in activity earlier this year in Johannesburg, expressing his shock and dismay at the state of some of the streets, potholes, water running into the street, etc. Mr. Ramaphosa stated, quote, that if Hattingh fails, South Africa cannot succeed, end quote. In his February 2025 State of the Province address, Gauteng Premier Panyaza Lesufi gave insight into his plans for Gauteng, focusing on the Gautrain. Quote, rail expansion will be a gateway to opportunity, creating more than 125,000 construction jobs while igniting growth in property, retail, and logistics along its path, end quote. Mr. Lesufi indicated that 120 billion rand was needed for this expansion. However, the province's annual budget over the 2019 to 2024 period only averaged 149 billion rand. All in all, South Africa's dysfunctional municipalities will only be turned around through detailed and no doubt difficult day-to-day work. It requires no compromised financial management, the appointment of employees based on merit rather than party affiliation, demanding accountability for performance, and the prudent use of public resources. Flights of fantasy, such as those proposed by Mr. Lesufi, will not fix problems with basic issues that plague even the biggest metros in the country. Now, while local government functions cannot be replaced wholeheartedly by private sector alternatives, these can provide the skills and capital necessary to improve aspects of municipal governance and in turn arrest or reverse municipal decline. There are already a few towns that have managed to repair their infrastructure networks with local businesses, community organizations, and local government all working together and taking ownership of the maintenance and upgrading of their town's public features and infrastructure. Let's see if this movement continues, because at this point in time, given the fiscal and skills pressure on national government and the lack of political will, we're not seeing the kind of interventions that we need in many small towns and municipalities around the country. Never mind, of course, in the biggest metros in Gauteng, the most important province to the country from an economic point of view. Thanks very much for watching. Until next time, this has been Chris Hattingh for the Center for Risk Analysis. Take care.